I don't say, for example, whether we're talking about unicorns or God, I don't assert that it's absolutely impossible for either of them to exist. It has nothing to do with whether or not it might be fun to think about them. I do not excuse unicorns, fairies, pixies, mermaids, leprechauns, or gods from the absolute certainty category just because I might like to think about them. Well, it's because I'm being intellectually honest and because that I understand that we can talk about things in two different contexts. One is a matter of practical certainty. I am practically certain that there are no unicorns and leprechauns or gods, but I'm not absolutely certain. And we get ourselves in trouble when we assert absolute certainty on issues like that. All you've done when you do that is provided ammunition to the other party to make the claim, and rightfully, that you are closed-minded, that you are not open to evidence, that you are unwilling to change your mind, and therefore you are a lost cause. That's what you're actually doing when you assert absolute certainties. You don't have to do that. You can still say the God claims, the mermaid claims, the unicorn claims, these are nuts. There is a virtual certainty, a near certainty that these things don't exist. And until you provide evidence to support them, I don't need to waste another moment thinking about them. But when you use the phrase absolute certainty, you've crossed a line over into a new category, and it causes nothing but trouble, which is why for years now, I've just flatly rejected absolute certainty as a useful or practical phrase for anything beyond the esoteric, labels, logical absolutes, things like that.
I totally understand what you're saying, and I do agree to a large extent, but I don't even want to leave that crack in the door available for a believer. In my mind, when a person asks me whether I'm an atheist or an agnostic, I just say, I'm an atheist. I don't think there's any possibility that...
But atheist doesn't mean absolute certainty that no gods exist. It doesn't mean... And when you say you don't want to leave that crap in the door... what I was trying to explain to you is that by asserting absolute certainty, you've left crap in the door. By asserting a practical certainty, you haven't. That's the only difference.
I wouldn't use that term, an absolute certainty.
But you did.
I would just say that I understand that mythological creatures are creatures that we created in our mind, and God is one of those creatures. And I more or less would leave it at that.
Well, you've just asserted something. You've just asserted something that you can't prove.
Well, it's not up to me to prove.
Yes, it is.
We know that we create mythological creatures. We have a long history of creating them. So we know that. It's not something that's up for debate. Everyone accepts the fact that we create creatures in our mind.
Yes, but you've made an assertion about a specific... You've made an assertion, you've made a logical fallacy. You have said, because we have created gods and we know that those gods are fictitious, therefore this God that you're talking about is fictitious. And that is a logical fallacy, and that's what I'm trying to point out. I know you're talking about practical reality, and in that area we're actually in agreement. I'm talking about the specifics of the language you use that make the difference between being somebody who is rational, who is making arguments, who is that are not fallacious, that do not shift the burden of proof, and that do not close off conversation. Those are the points that I'm making. When you make this assertion that we've created gods, and therefore this God that somebody else is citing is man-made, you've made an assertion that has shifted the burden of proof to you, and it's one that you cannot possibly defend. And that's the same reason I avoid absolute certainty.
I see.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about why you seem to need absolute certainty.
Well, I don't think about it as terms of absolute certainty. I think about it in the sense of just a very practical, day-to-day, real-life experience.
But that's
because
not...
I feel that the sort of the comments or the way you're expressing it is more philosophical.
No.
Philosophical. I'm just interested in life today. And
Well, the thing, let me tell you something. I'm an engineer, and I don't deal with absolute certainties ever as an engineer. And there are just an absolute certainty ever. But for practical purposes, for example, if I design, let's say an airplane, I can't guarantee you that airplane is not going to crash, that the parts on it are not going to fail. What I can do is design it such that my uncertainty about that is very, very low. And I can quantify that. And then I can design a factor of safety into that so that it increases my level of certainty that things will not fail and this thing is not going to crash and kill people. But I can't ever guarantee with 100% certainty about anything. And that's the same thing that happens with anything. And so, do you drive a car?
yes, right.
Okay. And you go into buildings?
Yes, right.
And you drive over bridges?
Yes.
Okay. There is no guarantee that those things aren't going to kill you. But you accept that level of uncertainty and you go about your life without even thinking about it every day. So you deal with uncertainty every day.
Correct,
it's not even something that you even think about too much.
As a matter of just...
So that's true. That's true. But for example, to use the car analogy, we all know that cars were not around 200 years ago. And we have an understanding of when they came about. And I think ideas are similar. We have an understanding of when a particular idea or a certain concept was developed, or how it was developed.
But the thing
for
is,
example, again, a unicorn.
No.
We all understand that.
You've missed the point.
That was developed in our head.
No.
You missed the point.
Not only did you miss your point, but now you're going on to assert that we have a good level of knowledge sufficient to talk about the creation of ideas in our history. Do you not realize that this is an area of considerable debate? The history of religion, the creation of the concepts of God. This is a hotly debated topic amongst anthropologists, and you're now saying that your armchair analysis is that we really know when roughly these concepts came in and that therefore they're all made. And you're leading yourself right back to the same fallacy that I pointed out before. As a matter of practical conversation, not only do you not need absolute certainty, which was the big point I was getting to, and the point that Jen made, but I'm fine with saying there are no gods. I say that all the time. It's a colloquialism that I don't object to. But when I say that, I am not saying I am absolutely certain that there are no things called gods or that would qualify as gods under any circumstances. That's not what I'm saying.
Well, what I'm saying is that I'm certain that it is a mythological creature because
then you're wrong.
Because that's how all mythological creatures have come about. There is no
boy. You just added circular reasoning on top of that.
Well, let me just say that everywhere we look in the universe, there is no suggestion that mythological creatures or magic exists. Nowhere.
Well,
and again, we can get philosophical and say that maybe somewhere there is magic. But I think that's just a philosophical perspective. In a very practical sense, that just doesn't happen. We are not aware of that anywhere.
I agree.
So
I agree,
the
but
notion that it might be real to me just seems a little. It just I guess the reason why I'm going to this extreme is because people hold on to this very, very small, entertaining notion, and then they just run away with it.
I agree, but it doesn't do any good.
You know what?
I agree, but it does no good for you to exaggerate the claims, because now you have run the opposite direction at breakneck speed. You don't further any conversation, you don't lead any resolution, and the people who took this slim idea and ran this way, who may need you to say, look, just because we don't necessarily eliminate all possibility doesn't mean that it's likely, doesn't mean that we should run away with it. Now they've lost that opportunity because you want to exaggerate beyond the bounds of logic.